So, I want you to imagine it's Sunday evening. As the sun sets, you realize the weekend is almost over, and you start thinking about Monday. The emails, the deadlines, the endless meetings. Does your stomach sink? Do you feel a familiar weight in your chest? I know this feeling well. Early in my career, I had the Sunday scaries. My job looked great on paper, but I felt empty inside. I didn't know it then, but what I was missing wasn't a better job or even a bigger paycheck. I was missing meaning, and meaning has a hidden beauty. We spend more waking hours working than doing anything else, and yet, for so many of us, work feels like something to endure rather than something that gives life meaning. But what if I told you it doesn't have to be this way? I'm a professor of leadership at Boston College and a researcher at the Positive Psychology Center at the University of Pennsylvania. My colleagues and I have spent years studying the specific practices that make work meaningful across industries, roles, and work cultures. And what we found is both simple and profound. Meaningful work isn't about what you do. It's about how you experience what you do. We often think of meaningful work as a rare breakthrough moment, landing that big promotion or nailing a client presentation, even changing a life. But meaning isn't just about intensity. It's also about frequency. It's the small, everyday moments that matter, that add up to a fulfilling career. Moments when a colleague checks in and helps when you're overwhelmed. Moments when a leader says, I see potential in you. Moments when we know we made a difference. Today, I want to share a framework to unlock meaning in any job based on 3 core elements, what we call the 3 C's of meaningful work: community, contribution, and challenge. Let's start with community, that feeling of belonging, of connection with the people we work with, the feeling that we matter. Think about a forest for a moment. As you walk through a forest, you might just see a collection of individual trees, oaks, aspens, redwoods. But what we don't see is that beneath the surface, something extraordinary is happening. Trees aren't just individual organisms competing for sunlight. They're part of what scientists call a superorganism. Their roots form an underground network, a system of support where nutrients are shared, signals are sent, and the strongest trees help sustain the weakest ones, ensuring that the entire forest thrives. This invisible network is what makes a forest strong, and the same is true in our workplaces. In the super organizations we study, the strongest teams aren't just a collection of talented individuals. They are interconnected systems where people lift each other up, they look out for each other, and they create networks of collaboration. This is the beauty of community, and it shows us that we are not alone. Guess how many work friends we need to not feel lonely at work? One. That's right. Research shows that all we need is one person that we feel connected to and can share positive experiences with. That's all it takes. Think about the last time you felt truly seen at work. Maybe it was a leader who noticed you were struggling and checked in, or a time when your colleagues rallied to help you meet a short deadline, not because they had to, but because they cared. Moments like these, don't show up on performance reviews, but they are the invisible glue that makes work truly meaningful. In our research, the most powerful question we asked to predict a sense of community was this: does your leader care about what's happening in your life outside of work? Those who answered yes felt connected and accepted. So tomorrow, instead of diving straight into work, take a moment to ask a colleague about something beyond their to-do list. This simple gesture can turn an ordinary interaction into a meaningful connection. This feeling of community helps us feel connected at work. But for work to be truly meaningful, we also need to know that what we do matters. This is where contribution, our second C, comes in. Contribution is the beauty of knowing we make a difference. I think about this every time I sit in Brianne's chair. Brianne is my hairstylist. And one day, a few years ago, Brianne looked at me through the mirror and said, "You know, Tamara, I don't see myself as a hairstylist. I see myself as a day maker." As a meaningful work researcher, I was intrigued, so I asked her what she meant. And that's when she told me about David Wagner. David was the owner of the salon where Brianne trained. And one day, a longtime client came in for a haircut and color. During the appointment, David connected with her. She laughed at his jokes. He hugged her goodbye. A few days later, David received a heartbreaking letter from that client. In it, she revealed that she had planned on taking her own life that day. And the only reason she booked the appointment was to have her hair styled for her funeral. But something changed in that chair. And it wasn't the haircut or the perfect color. It was the way she felt in that hour with David. Seen, cared for, connected. That feeling gave her just enough hope to check herself into a hospital instead. David was shaken. He had never thought of his job as life-changing, but that day, a haircut saved a life. And David realized that every interaction holds potential for meaning if we choose to create it. That was the day that David founded the Daymaker movement, teaching hairstylists everywhere that they're not just doing hair, they're creating moments that matter. Brianne learned this philosophy, and it transformed how she sees her job. Brianne wants to make a bigger impact by creating moments of joy for us, her clients. She wants us to leave her chair feeling like she made our day, and she does. You too can adopt this Daymaker mindset because meaningful work isn't about the tasks you do, but about the impact you make. This shift in mindset can be powerful. Believe it or not, people don't burn out from hard work alone. They burn out from working hard and feeling like what they do doesn't matter. Knowing why what we do matters fuels our motivation. In a fascinating study by Adam Grant at Wharton, university fundraisers were divided into groups. The first group got to spend just 5 minutes hearing from a student who benefited from the scholarship they were raising money for. The other groups did not. In the weeks that followed, the first group, the group who met the students, raised nearly 3 times more money than those who didn't. Why? Because they saw the impact of their work firsthand. Those phone calls weren't about meeting quotas anymore. They were about changing students' lives. Those fundraisers were daymakers. In our study, people who saw a clear connection between their work and its impact were significantly more engaged and more likely to stay. But so often, leaders assume that we already see our contributions clearly. The reality is that most of us don't. A simple way to change that is to tell them. Let people know their work matters and why. That presentation was a game changer. Because of you, the team had exactly what we needed to move forward. Or, I noticed how you handled that call today. Thank you. You turned a frustrated client into a loyal customer. Small moments of recognition like this have the power to change how someone sees their job, turning everyday tasks into meaningful work. But meaning doesn't come just from community and contribution. It also comes from the stretch, the growth, the moments when we are challenged to be more than we were yesterday. That's the third C, challenge. Challenge is the beauty of knowing that we are learning and growing. A fisherman in France once caught a 67-pound goldfish. That's right, a goldfish the size of my golden doodle, Callie. Because here's the thing about goldfish, they don't stop growing. Their size is determined by their environment. If you put a goldfish in a small bowl, it stays small. But if you put it in a lake, it can grow into something extraordinary. Humans are the same. Our potential grows in environments that push us, that challenge us to be the best versions of ourselves. I once worked for a leader who put me in a proverbial lake. A few years out of college, I worked at an ad agency in New York City, and during my first month at the job, I got pulled into a high-stakes client pitch. The whole team was gathered in the conference room, sharing ideas, and everyone was expected to contribute. I was terrified. My heart was pounding, my throat was dry, and that voice in my head kept saying, "You have nothing valuable to contribute." But when I finally spoke up, my boss, Madonna Badger, didn't just acknowledge me, she amplified my voice. About a year later, she gave me an even greater challenge. The morning of a crucial client presentation, she called me to say that she could no longer make it, so I had to present alone. I begged her to reschedule, tried to protest, but she simply said, "Tamara, you're ready." That moment changed everything. Her belief in me made me want to prove her right. And I did. Sometimes leaders see something in us before we see it in ourselves. And that belief, it can change the course of a career. But so often, our workplaces shrink us down. They keep us in the small bowl instead of opening up the lake. The best leaders create conditions for their people to expand. In our research, we found that one of the most powerful forms of feedback is about potential. The most transformative leaders say things like, "You're ready for this challenge. I believe in you. This will be hard, but I know you can do it." This kind of belief-driven feedback has the power to stretch our sense of what's possible and help us reach our full potential. We spend more waking hours at work than anywhere else. The relationships we build, the impact we make, the challenges we take on, these are things that shape us. French poet Paul Eluard once said, "There is another world, but it's inside this one." I know this other world exists because I've seen it. In our research, I've witnessed workplaces that provide more than a paycheck. In these workplaces, people feel connected and accepted. Their contributions are recognized and highlighted, and they are challenged and supported with opportunities to grow. These workplaces aren't mythical, they're real, they're possible, and we have the power to create them. Remember that sinking feeling on Sunday evening? Imagine if instead of dreading Monday, You looked forward to the community, the contributions, and the challenges ahead. This is what meaningful work feels like. So tomorrow, I encourage you to ask someone a real question. Thank them for their contribution. Push them to grow. Because when we choose to create meaningful work, we don't just build better workplaces. We build better lives. Thank you.